For today's video, we have some very special guests. We're joined by JB and Pistol from Dr. Supercoach. Boys, how are you?
Yeah, doing very well. Thanks for having us.
That's all right. I love hearing your voices on your own podcast, so I just had to get it on here as well. And of course,
we get that a lot.
George, how are we, mate?
Pleasure as always. You can find Dr. Supercoach. I'm sure you've already heard of him, but they have the Slack, Patreon, and SoundCloud on all good streaming services, so check them out. But yeah, I'm sure you already have. And we're going to do have a bit of fun today. We're going to do a snake draft, picking our first picked in each line. So we'll each pick 2 premiums in each line. Price is a factor, so we might value some picks a bit more. So yeah, our first picked, and also a mid-pricer. So I think should be a bit of fun, and we might have a bit of debate on whether we agree or disagree with the person. So starting off, we're going to start in the defense line, and Enno, the pleasure is yours. Who is your first pick defender for Supercoach 2022?
Is there a music intro or no? Just have to go. All right. So for me, the first pick just has to be Jake Lloyd. I think you're probably going to hear it a lot from a lot of people in the preseason, but looking at the list, to me, he's the most proven. I think that's obvious. I looked at it in my video the other day. I think he's played 81 of the last 83 games, last 4 seasons, and averaged about 120 or something stupid like that, 115, 120. So to me, he's the most consistent defender there is for 2022. He doesn't miss games. And to me, there's a little bit of upside with only averaging 107 the season just gone. I think he's upside to get back to higher than that for 2022. So for me, he's my pick 1. Who's your pick 2? You, George?
Yes, I'll take pick 2. I'll say Aaron Hall, just because I think he's a bit unders for what he can do because of those first few games he had last year. So it's very hard to go past Hall. Probably marginally less safe than Lloyd, but I just feel his upside is far too good to pass up. Happy with taking Hall at pick 2. JB, who's your next?
Both great picks, by the way. I would have taken both them 1 and 2. I was hoping one would slide, so now I'm in a bit of danger. Look, I know he's coming off of an injury towards the back end of last season. I'm going to go with Tom Stewart. I don't think he's a particularly safe pick in terms of value, but he's safe in terms of average. He's very consistent, does his job, doesn't usually miss bulk games. So I think in terms of safety premiums, you've picked the best 2. So from there on, I think Tommy Stewart's a good pick.
Interesting. I'll go with a bit more, I guess.
I left the prize man for you.
Yeah, no, that was going to be my pick actually, but I'm going to go with a bit more value. I'm going to say Lockie Whitfield at 502k. Look, the injury-prone factor is not great. However, his upside, his scoring potential, it's just role dependent. I think they might want to use him in his most damaging role. I think off the halfback and wing. I think just linking up the play for the Giants. I think next year they're going to need to push deeper into finals. I mean, they're basically just at this point a feeder team for other teams, and their talents all being strung across the league. So they need to make a push. Whitfield's in his prime. I think 502k for somebody that could average 105 plus is there's a lot of value there as well. I was going to say back to me. All right,
back picks.
I will go back to Jack Crisp, 571k. And it was saying how Lloyd has played basically, only missed 1 game in however many years, 4 years. Jack Crisp's last game he missed was in 2014. He does not miss a game. He pretty much is just that solid 100 average. Last season he pushed to 105 with a bit more midfield responsibility. That's why he ends up getting that DPP status, which he's typically not been in the past. I think he won't play more midfield. I think that's kind of misdirection and from what some people are saying. I don't think that will be true. I mean, depending on Goey and what happens with him, I think he'll play roughly the same role that he had last season. And look, he averaged 105 and played 22 games. I think that's a pretty safe bet and a pretty good pick. So right back at you, JB.
Back to me. Another person who I think's role has changed a little bit, Jordan Ridley, with the acquisition of Jake Kelly, who should hopefully have him floating across packs again, taking marks. I think he's still going to be prone to the occasional Toby Green role. He's just so good at it. But 98 average, with how he started the season, he could have gone so much bigger. If you get to hold of the kickouts again, Jake Kelly frees him up a little bit. I think easy value pick there.
Yep. I'm going to snipe Eno here. I'm going to take Jaden Shaw. So with there's a few other players I'm interested in their role, but we don't know that yet. So as it stands right now, Jaden Shaw, I think they use him so much in defence, takes all those kickouts, and yeah, he's high endurance, has a lot of good fundamentals for an excellent halfback flanker. So without Hooley, I think his average was between 105 and 108, somewhere in that range. I can't remember, which is pretty damn good. So I would think that would be whereabouts he scores, somewhere in the mid-hundreds this year. And very durable as well. Apart from a broken elbow, something like the dislocated elbow a few years ago, nothing's really happened to him. So, Eno, who do you take with the pick 8?
I was ready for that. I think the last one to me that appeals the most is Daniel Rich. I mean, we sort of always overlook him, I feel, every season. He's always that 90s average, but he's pushed it up the last couple of years. And Birchall's retired, so similar, I guess, to Hooley. That, I mean, he already had the monopoly over the kickouts and all that, but I think he might, with Birchall gone, just sort of free that up and shore that up. So I think for me, he's the last one there that I really like.
Yep. You're on for the first mid-price then.
I'll go. Okay. Are you doing mid-prices? Okay.
Or we could just anyone.
Let's go and discuss the order real quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So I can go through the order. I've got it written down. So Lloyd, Hall, Stewart, Whitfield, then Crisp, Ridley, Short, and Daniel Rich. Any surprises there? I'm going to start with you, Eno.
I think for me, maybe JB going Tom Stewart at 3, only because of the injury that he suffered last year. Like, obviously, this is all probably assuming that he gets through that and looks all right in preseason and is fit to play round 1. But it still would linger in my mind picking a guy with a Liz Frank injury, only because I think they're really, I'm not a doctor, but I think they're pretty bad to recover from. So I like the sort of assurance of, a healthy Supercoach pick heading to a season. So maybe that pick, if anyone else agrees with that thought process.
I might jump in. So
I'll get rebuttal.
Defend yourself, JB.
Nah, I'm not defending myself. It wasn't. I mean, there was a little bit of panic. I don't think Aaron Hall was going to go 2 for sure. But honestly, no. I just considered if the preseason did go as it went and Tom Stewart was healthy, in terms of third premiums to choose, if he is healthy going into the season, I just think he actually is super, super safe. So I looked for safety after Aaron Hall got taken. Crisp has his question marks, so does Ridley. The next few guys taken all had their question marks. I just thought if he's fit going into the season, Stewart really only has the past injury to his foot as his only question mark. I just thought bit of safety, but maybe could have gone on the turnaround even. Yep. So a little bit early, but
no, I'm surprised Sicily didn't go in the top 8, just because I know a lot of people are picking Sicily to start the season, and we've done a draft where we've picked 8 premiums and he's not there, which I guess makes you question the value of actually starting Sicily in our team if we don't expect him to be in the top 8 defenders.
I reckon I'd have 3 or 4 players ahead of him that we haven't named, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not his biggest fan this year, but
definitely makes you think.
A few question marks. Yeah, at that price, so you probably would have thought he'd be thereabouts on this list.
Good one.
Yeah, I think
Whitfield was aptly named ahead of him, to be honest. I think Whitfield's actually going under the radar a little bit early days, just because everyone got burnt last year. I think he's a good pick.
And I'm a big fan of Jaden Shaw as well, so I was happy he went where he did. I thought it was going to go higher than Ridley, but I'll let that one slide.
It's pretty hard to split those two. Something we can discuss another day, I suppose. Yeah, I definitely think Whitfield as well. Remember all these years ago, last time he had a full pre-season, he went berserk. I think 120 in the first few rounds, first third of the season or something. So 500k DPP, if you don't have that, I'm a little worried, to be honest. But then again, who knows what happens with his body. So, I think that's enough on the defenders premium. So I think we can move to mid prices. So we have to pick one each. So Enno, you have the first pick.
Oh, sweet. That's a relief. I think for me, I'm going to go with George Hewitt. He seems the most. He stands out the most to me in sort of the mid price range. Gets into the Carlton midfield. There is still a few guys maybe you could peg ahead of him. So that would need to sort of get sorted out in the preseason. Is he going to be in the top 4 for rotations, or is he on the outer? But they got him in to probably play more of that defensive mid role that he can. He's sort of done in the past, free up guys like Walsh and Cripps and whatnot. So I think for me, he's the best in that price. And obviously the DPP always doesn't hurt. So he's my pick.
Don't mind Hewitt. Yes, I'll go next. So by the way, we're doing 400k and under. So Hewitt just qualified. So this is a tough one, a really tough one. And I'm having a look, and I'm thinking if I had to pick someone, I'd go Lockie Ash. So with Ash, I saw him play midfield last year, bit of a tagging role, but I was really impressed with him. Love him. Might not be ready just yet, but I think he's going to be a star one day. So has high endurance, has a lot of great attributes, really quick, and he might end up a midfielder only this year. I'm not even sure if he's mid or defender this year. Actually, no, he's defender. All good.
That would have been a disaster.
Yeah. All good. So I'll go. My second mid-price after George Hewitt is Lockie Ash.
Okay, I do like Lockie Ash as well, a lot. I'm not saying just in terms of Supercoach this season. Just I can see what you can see in the pedigree, in the actual player himself. I think he's going to be super good. I'm going to go down to the other end of the spectrum in terms of price. I'm going to pick another Carlton player, Caleb Marchbank. 209k. I just think this guy has a good history of going 70 plus just when he gets on the park. He usually gets a good role because he's that sort of medium marking tool, and even when he's locking down, he can just mark the ball really well and distributes really safely out of defence. So I think if he's fit going into the season, he'll be a super good pick at 209k.
All right, I can't lie, the panic set in a little bit now. I talked about Trey Rusko on our podcast a few days ago, so I'm not going to pick him. I'll go more wild. I think I'm going to say the 4th best mid-pricer for defender. Braden Campbell, 293k for the Swans. Now that Dawson's gone, I mean, Blakey kind of moved to the halfback. I just think Campbell's got better attributes for playing off that halfback role. I think given his kicking ability, if he's able to lock in a halfback flank role, I think he could still be pretty lucrative. He did ton up in one of his 8 games last season, and I think he's got potential there. I mean, might just be a year, kind of like Ash. Might not be this year, might be in the future, but I think at some stage he might be very Supercoach relevant off the halfback flank line for the Swans.
I like that pick. Yeah.
So, can anyone see anyone picking any of these players?
I've just got to say, George, you lose your pick, mate. Sorry, because Ash is 413k. So.
Oh, no. I didn't realise we were still in the premium section. I picked Sicily for my mid-pricer.
I've got Ash's 321k. Yeah.
Oh, controversy.
Oh, you've got the discount Supercoach version.
I'm looking at the 20.
You're looking at the end of last season. Yeah.
I'd say Jeremy Howe then. 390k.
You know what? No, you can have the closest next player, which is James Aish. Very close to 371k does meet the criteria.
I think you'd be hard pressed to pick any of those mid prices, but I think again another thing that stood out is who we didn't select. I think there's a bit of hype around Wayne Miller, and all 4 of us passed on him, which I also find very interesting, just because I guess you'd think he would kind of be the hype choice of a mid-pricer defender at the moment. So definitely interesting to hear that you guys
I can see myself picking Marchbank if he was fit going into the
year. Yeah, it's true.
It depends on the defender rookies, of course, but 209k is super low risk with someone who should be best 22 and has scored decently in the past, although very injury prone.
Yeah.
George, do you probably have thoughts on Malera or Wayne Miller? Yeah.
I don't trust him. I was pretty annoyed when we signed him on a 5-year deal. He has been doing nothing for 2 years of that deal. Just don't trust his body. So, and his role is very iffy. I know he wants to be a defender, but I don't know if he gets that role or not. because he
You
played
guys have a lot of
forward
depth
as a
back there
junior.
as well. Hmm.
Yes, and Dawson might see some usage down back as well. So, yeah, I think he'll play, but like if he's fit enough. But it's role is question mark. You might be stuck with someone that doesn't go up much in price because of role. So that's why I didn't even think about Miller. And if I saw him, I wouldn't have picked him. So,
I completely agree with that. Your wings are very, very hard pressed to get time on as well. So obviously Seedsman all Australian form last year, and you got pretty much 5 other players who could slot into the other wing, including Dawson, who is your new recruit. So yeah, I don't understand the Miller hype as well.
Yeah, I did start him for 400k a few years ago, and it worked for 5 weeks. And he had a role change, got injured, and that's scared me off for good, pretty much.
Yep.
So we'll move on to the midfielders. So I have first pick of the midfielders. So this will be interesting. There's a few cheaper guys, but my M1, my first pick in the midfield is Jack Steele. So I'm picking Jack Steele. I think there might be a little bit of upside with no Ron Marshall the first few weeks last year, where he underperformed. I think he averaged around in the hundreds somewhere over a good stretch. Dropped in price and then went berserk, went 135, 140, something like that after that. So he has a perfect fantasy game. Is the captain option for me. So I cannot see myself going without Jack Steele this year. I just have to. He's my first over everybody. So JB.
That's a great pick, by the way. Jack Steele hasn't left my team for a second. Now I'm considering giving Pistol a massive sleeper at pick 3, or just going the guy who I kind of think as well. I'm going to run with him. I'm going to go with Lockie Neal for pick 2. Price considered as well. Only 99 average last season, looking fit coming into this year. 543k. If he's fit and plays half an hour of preseason, he's going to be the best pick of the season, I think, at that price.
Yeah, hard to argue. I think. This hasn't gone how I've expected it to go, so I'm excited to see how the rest of this plays out for sure. But for pick 3, I'm actually going to pick Took Miller. 124 average last season, and after round 7 he went 130 plus. With Greenwood now gone, I know Greenwood was injured for large parts of the season, but it just, his scoring was better when Greenwood wasn't in the side. I think his usage just goes up, and now that's a permanent thing going into the next season. So I think in terms of captaincy options, if you want somebody who didn't go below 100 after that round 7 or so, I think Took Miller suddenly becomes another captaincy option where you can do a VC or C and Steele Took Miller combination for a lot of the year and do that quite comfortably. So I think that's why I'd be spending my money up on somebody who doesn't really go sub 100 and is a really safe pick, I guess.
Cool.
You have 2
all right.
picks, Anno.
Yeah, cheers. Well, the first one out of the way, we'll just get Jack Mcrae onto my team.
That's why I thought I was letting slide to pick 3, by the way.
What is he? $100 under 700k. I did it again. Got the stats out for the video I did the other day. 125 average for 80 of the last 83 games, the last 4 years. Most consistent midfielder we've had. So for me, he's an easy pick there. And I did look at the fixture. They have 6 of the first 9 games on like a Thursday or Friday. So good for VCing as well. Jack Mcrae. Now the next one gets a little bit more interesting, but maybe not. Probably just go with Clayton Oliver again. He's probably second to Clary in I don't think he's actually missed a game since his second season. So, consistent as ever. Now he's a 120 plus mid. These are in their prime. He's in his prime. Yeah, I think those are the 2 I'll take back to back.
Yeah, makes sense. I think with the next pick, I'm going to select Tom Mitchell, 117 average last season. After he warmed up after the bye, I think it was about 128 or so average. Basically came home really strong. Again, someone who didn't sub-ton on the run home. So I like picking players where they're hard to kind of get in at times throughout the season. Other players like Bontenpelli and stuff, they do fall in price, and you are able to get them cheaper throughout the season just because they do have that one-off game. But some of these ball magnets, Miller and Mitchell, Mcrae is another one. they didn't have bad games, so they were always above 600k, and they just became so hard to get throughout the season that, I just kind of want to start them so I can get that out of the way and focus on some of the more, I guess, players of volatile scoring throughout the season.
Fair enough. I feel like I'm going to be giving George a tap in here by passing on one guy and going with the guy that you just mentioned, Pistol, with Marcus Bontenpelli. Someone who I've found is the most infuriating person to not own, and the only times I don't own him is generally to start the season. And then I do own him for the second half of the season, and he tends to fall off. So the first half of that season is where it becomes his most tempting and where it becomes his highest price as well. So I think if you're going to go safe in the midfield, 651k, 119 average, someone who can actually improve on how he finishes the season. The last couple of years, I think he's sort of tapered off towards the end. And he kind of puts you off for the next season in starting him, and he does the same thing and just goes bananas to start the season. So I'd be saving a lot of stress with a Bontenpelli pick, I think. George?
So I think there's probably 2 picks left. You took one of them, so I have to take Samwell.
Yeah, I was deciding as well.
So Samuel just covered the most ground of any player in the home and away season last year, even more than Took Miller. So just unbelievable improvement over the years, work rate and all that. So started kicking a few goals last year as well. So it has to be Samuel. I think he's got that ceiling to hit those 190 games. He's already showed that. So I would think he gets a little bit better this year. But yes, I think that rounds out a very nice 8, I think. So the order was Steele, Lockie, Neal, Miller, Mcrae, Oliver, Titch, Bontenpelli, and Walsh. Anyone disagree or agree, should a player been higher or lower? Start with you, Pistol.
I mean, I think I thinking about it, Mcrae probably should have gone a little bit higher, but I think, for we'll call it caught up in the moment / love of the podcast, I think we made our selections, and I'm happy with the 8 we selected. I think, honestly, we picked the best 8 premium midfielders definitely to start next season. So, very, very happy with what we put out here.
Yep. It was probably maybe just where Neal fell in the 8 was probably the only thing where we valued him. Yeah. So, that number 2.
Do you boys agree with the Lockie Neal selection?
I agree with it. You go.
The thing that annoys me about Neal is he had calf issues in the preseason, and they popped up again in August or July. But maybe that was poor conditioning over the preseason, where he basically didn't train until a week before. So with great conditioning, maybe that doesn't happen. So that bothers me a little bit. But if I had to take Neal or Steele out, I would take Neal out. But going without Neal could end your season, I think. So
I think so.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. But we can move on to mid prices. So first pick, I have the first pick of the midfield mid prices. Okay, I got to think on the spot here. I will take
under 400k.
Yes, under 400k. It has to be Jared Berry, I think. So Berry is, for me, a watch in the preseason. There's a few boxes he has to tick. I think he's in full training at the moment, which is good. He needs his CBA roll back, and just needs to pass the eye test, because last year didn't seem to cover the ground too well, and I thought he was like a bit more forwardish than all over the ground like most midfielders. So I'll take Berry at 260k. I think that's incredible value for what he can do, and one in high consideration for my team. JB, the next pick is yours.
Absolutely, and I had him in a keeper league, and I'm surprised he didn't get forward status, actually. He played that much forward, so CBA role is super important. As you were forced into him, I think I'm kind of forced into the next guy, which is Maddie Rao. Just someone that, if he comes out and has a huge preseason, he's going to be super hard to deny. We know he's got the scoring potential, as we saw in his rookie season. He's now technically an injury-prone player, so we'd need to see a full preseason and a good couple of preseason games. But with Hugh Greenwood coming out of that side, there's a massive hole in the midfield that someone like Maddie Rao, obviously, as we've seen, can just go bananas with.
So for the third pick for the mid-pricer in the midfield, anyone who listens to our podcast will probably expect me to try and spice up the draft a little bit. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick Stephen Coniglio in the midfield. So we rule him out as a forward option later. Make the choices a little bit more interesting. I actually considered
that, but I thought I'm not going to be that guy.
I think it harms me because I have the first pick in the forward. So all I've done really is potentially harm myself and whoever has the fourth pick, which is you, JB. So that was basically just trying to bomb JB out of the draft here. But yeah, Coniglio, I think, still has a lot of upside, very much role dependent. If we see him playing in the midfield in the preseason, it's hard to say no to a guy that's averaged over 100 multiple years at only 260k. Plus he's got DPP, which, you've got to absolutely love. So, if you're picking him in the forward or midfield, I'd obviously pick him in the forward line, but for this podcast, I'm going to be selecting him in the midfield and take a future option off the board.
Yeah, smart. I like that. If anyone's listened to George over the last 2 weeks, I think this pick is probably obvious, and that's Finn Mcrae. At what is he, 206? Yeah, George is sending photos of him bulking up and muscling with Pat Lipinski. So are you? Yeah. I think he's probably the next best there. I don't like a lot of the others at all anyway. There's like Dylan Shield, no thanks. Charlie Constable, yet to be seen if he's going to even be best 22. So for me, it's probably Finn with the last pick there.
I'm just saying his brother averaged 100 in his second year, so they're basically the same, similar people. So
they do look the same when they carry the ball.
I got roasted. I got absolutely roasted for mentioning that on the podcast and talking about Mcrae and us. Like, it didn't go down well. Let's put it that way.
He was getting 18, 19 touches a game last month, so I think it's okay.
I think the only thing is he needs to kick more. But from what I've seen, he just did, and when he did kick, it wasn't great. But yeah,
he's gonna handball all the time. His arms are huge.
Yeah, I think Jack's a lot better kick, but yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so the order was Berry, Rao, Cogs, Mcrae. Tough one. Can you guys see yourselves picking any of these players? I think Cogs will walk again.
Berry, yes. Cogs not in the midfield.
Yeah. Thanks.
Rao potentially, but he'd have to do something crazy in the preseason, I think.
I guess a question thrown back, like what would Rao have to do in the preseason for you to consider him?
I don't think there's anything he can do. But the bar at 350k, the bar is too high for the pick to work. Especially with all the midfield spots to me anyway are just so precious this year. There's so many good options. So I can't.
So he comes out, he goes 30 plus touches again. He's done that in the preseason before. He just slaughtered. I mean, it wasn't 30 plus because it was shortened quarters, but he comes out and he absolutely dominates both games. You're still like, nah, bad price.
I think I'm considering more than George by the looks of it. Yeah, I'd be looking at him more than that than just straight no. But he's got to prove his fitness. I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, right.
I kind of don't think I'd look at anyone except for, not including Coniglio, but I think Berry is probably the only one. As George said, the midfield slots. I think the midfield rookies this year look really solid, and I don't know if I want to use up a midfield rookie slot on a mid-pricer unless I think they're really going to go 100 plus. And I think there's not too many of them that can achieve that. So, I think we'll add them to the watch list, but none of them are currently in my side.
Yep. So we'll move on to the rucks. So we'll do just the pick 4 rucks, so one each. And we're also doing a mid-pricer ruck, which, good luck to the last 2 weeks for that. Sorry. Pistol. JB. Sorry, JB. I knew I'd stuff that up. That was
George. If you want me to take first pick of the forwards, I'm very much okay with that.
Who's your?
I guess I'll start with the rucks. Okay, so there's 2 super obvious standout pick 1 potentials. I'm going to go with the one that I think is more interesting, Sean Darcy as my pick 1. Just what he was able to do in the second half of the season after he got fully fit with Meek playing in the side early days, I think he's actually underpriced as well, which is crazy at 118. He can do wild things out on the field. He did actually play 21 games last year, so I know he does appear to be injury prone. He lived off a lot and probably played through injuries. I think he got subbed off maybe one time. I think he would have been subbed off, but they'd already used their sub or something like that during a game. So, he's the definition of the walking wounded. But the things that he can do when he is on and playing even 3/4 of footy towards the end of last year, I think he's going to be the biggest player to price you out if he strings together the first half of the season without missing any games. So, absolutely could punish you the most, I think, out of the rucks.
I think that leaves Brody Grundy to me, which I'm very happy about. 115 average last year, which is worst average in the last 4 seasons. He's only missed 2 games in 4 years, which was this season. So doesn't miss games. He's averaged over 125 combined in his last 4 seasons. So he is probably about 10 points underpriced. I know with him, it looks more like a mental slowness rather than anything physically wrong with him, and for his decline in Supercoach points, we'll see how the new Collingwood game style works out and how that works for Grundy. But looking at him in this preseason where he's already trimmed down and running more, I'm expecting him to get back to his ball collecting best as a ruckman, and I think for us that just means 125 plus Supercoach points and a very solid week in week out scorer. So happy to take him at pick 2 there.
Yep, probably saw that going the way it did. But for me, it's probably harder for George because I'm still going to pick Max Gawn here. I don't have anyone else above him, even though there are a few question marks over Jackson and all that sort of stuff. It's been spoke about a million times, but he's still Max Gawn. He is 30, but he still has a couple of good years left in him. And it's the cheapest we've had Max Gawn for probably 3 or 4 years. So yeah, he's still pick 3 for me, or the rucks. Good luck, George.
So you probably know who I'm going to pick here. I've spoken a little about Oscar Mcinerney. So he would be my 4th, priced at I think 93 and went 120 in his last 5, something like that. I like Mcinerney's game. He can play a bit of bully ball in the ruck now, so that's where you get your massive scores. Won the hardest worker at the club award. They have that award at the Brisbane Best and Fairest, which caught my eye. So that's always been a big factor when I select my premium players. So I'll go with the big O. Does Fort coming in? Does that mean they might use McInerney forward a bit more? Not sure, to be honest, but I think McInerney looks capable, super hard worker, and he's been in this system a few years now. I think he started a bit later, 27 now. So some rocks can hit their prime a bit later. So I'll go with the big O as my last one. So the order was Darcy, Grundy, Gawn, McInerney. Just curious, would anyone have someone more relevant than McInerney at 4?
I considered that you would take potentially Ron Marshall, but that was about it. Otherwise, I think McInerney is a good pick there.
Yeah, same. I think he did well. Pick 4 there.
Okay.
Yep. Seems to be writing off Nick Nat.
As always.
He's been good the last 2 years. I mean,
he played 22 last year.
I know. The shortened season helped him playing 16 quarters, and then, I don't know, he continued on this year and didn't miss a game. So, but, yeah, he is getting on a bit.
Now, good luck with the ruck mid prices. So, I think it's JB. Who have you got?
Yeah, I'll kick off. All right, so firstly, I think it's super obvious Braden Prus, if he is fit, is actually somewhat viable, whereas I don't know who you boys are taking, but there's not a lot of viable picks if you do want to save money in the ruck. Look, if he looks fit, if they're looking to secure him as their number 1 ruckman, which they did recruit him to do, despite him not being able to actually get on the field and do it yet, I do think he will become viable. 85 plus is generally what we see from first-hand number 1 ruckman in for their club. So if he gets 85 plus, he's probably making as much as any other cash cow in the game. So I do think he becomes viable if he locks it down, but it's a big if.
Yeah, another one with question marks. Max Lynch, 207k. Really liked what I saw from him at the Pies. He looks like he's going to be a genuinely good ruckman. There's a little bit or a big bit of a Reeves problem at Hawthorn. He is definitely going to be in that battle for starting ruck. I don't think they'll play both of them. I think it's one or the other. So, it's up to him to win that position over Reeves. And, I mean, he wouldn't have left if he didn't think he was a genuine chance of being the number one ruck. I think, he's going to have to take down. I think he's going to have a lot of work on his shoulders. The big boy he's up against, but I think he's genuinely good. The problem is I don't think he's a particularly good Supercoach scorer, which matters when we're playing Supercoach. So in terms of cash making potential, I do think it's going to be much lower than Prus, and you've got that job security issue, but I think he's the second best mid-price ruck option that we've got. So that's why I'm picking him.
All right. I think for me, it's Jared Witts is all I can really see that possibly has a role to play. He's 380k, so it is a bit higher than what you would like. But he has been a sort of 90 plus to 100 average ruckman when he has played. Obviously, he's coming off the big injury, so who knows if he's going to be fit or if he's going to work himself back into the team. But in saying if he does all that, then yeah, I think he's the third best here. Not that I can see much else.
So, this is tough. I gotta realize I think I've got the wrong picker up.
Again.
Is
it's actually excusable to pick from that one.
He is. He's 396.
Okay, I've got the right one. I will take Draper. So Draper looks pretty capable. Can have those dominant games. Durability is unacceptable, I think. So again, picking from not a whole lot here, but he looks capable and had some decent scoring in the back half of last year, but he's a little bit inconsistent as well. Maybe that's just because lack of conditioning compared to other players that get a full run at it. So I'll take Draper at 4. So the order was Prus, Lynch, Witts, and Draper. Maybe JB, any thoughts? Would you have anyone else in this list or up or down?
No, this list could have been 2. I think you boys did well to try and sell the picks that you had because it's obviously incredibly tough after Lynch and Prus. You might get number one ruck roles. Look, if I was going to commit to considering any of these guys in the preseason, then Lynch and Prus, if they both win their number one ruck role and I can just put 400k into my ruck line at R2 and 3 and just have them cover each other, it's under consideration, but it is highly unlikely that happens and highly unlikely that we go with anyone other than a couple of big boys again this year.
I think Prus is a good scorer, so I'd rather him on the field and SS Lynch covering in case GWS do any funny business with their ruck rotations. And I guess that would be the strategy, hoping Prus bangs out 90 plus or 95 plus, but that's a high risk, high reward strategy.
I currently have that in my team right now, but it is December, so
I think the only one potentially, the only other one that might potentially, I'm going to throw a name at you, Ivan Soldo. Didn't play a game last season, 326k. He did kind of, Nank got injured, but he did stay in the side ahead of Nank when Nank was fit. So that might be up for grabs, that role. And he's only 326k. And if he's a starting ruck at Richmond, I guess I looked at Zach Smith. So I'm willing to look at any ruck.
Wow.
I shouldn't have brought that up.
Nah, as a Richmond fan, 2019, when heading into that final series, he was playing and Nank, as you said, was injured. But I think if both are fit, I think we like playing 2 rucks. I think he wants that option, so that might hinder his scoring. But I did think about it. But I think they'd play him together, if anything.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yep, so they are the rucks, and now we can move on to the forward line. So forward line is just a mess every year. This year, I think it's a mess again. So this will be fun, I think. Pistol, who are you taking as your first forward? Who's your first pick in the forward line?
Look, there's an obvious pick here. I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna go with what I think is the best, I guess, value pick as a premium option, assuming he's not deregistered by the AFL or his club, and that's Jordan Goey at 460k. There might be a bit of Collingwood bias in that selection, but Look, he went 105 plus in the back end of the year when he moved into the midfield. I think that is a role that they will continue to use him with. Obviously, he has a lot of issues in general, and that might mean he gets cop suspensions, missed games, which does not make him a very good Supercoach selection. But in terms of his points per dollar output as a premium, 463k when you're paying for somebody that should be priced at like 570. It's just it's good value, but let's see what happens before round 1 because he might not even be an option by then.
Cool. Thanks for that, Pistol. So I'll take Josh Dunkley and we'll go to pick 3. 550k. Just this man is also pretty good. Like he's a 600k player. He spent most of his 2 years when he's played in that price range, but obviously injuries are just killed him the last 2 years. But they've been an ankle on the final siren and they've a shoulder injury, which just are unfortunate. They're not soft tissue. So I believe that if he's playing round 1, he's going to be in every one of our sides.
Yeah.
Who's next? Is it George?
You guys are gonna hate this one, and I'm not gonna steal JB's pick.
Oh, thank God. You actually scared me.
You can have that one. I dream of Heaney. I'm taking Heaney.
Oh
no!
This is so in character.
He will score. Isaac will score. Last year, it was a complete write-off for Isaac because of that ankle. He was limping. He said multiple times throughout the year, "My ankle is sore. I'm not training." Full preseason. I know we've been here. This is chapter 6 of the volume 6 of Isaac Heaney, more midfield time as a starting Supercoach pick. But he will score, give him a full preseason. They said he's going to get more mid-time. Whether you think that's going to happen or not, by round 5, they might need him up forward because, a buddy might get injured or something. So I think he will score anywhere between 90 and 105, maybe a bit more just because he's so talented. But yeah, just a few things pending. But give him a full preseason. Averaged 92, I think, after the bye last year. So, and he had some sort of weird role, sometimes on a wing, sometimes half forward. So it's a bit weird, but yeah, barely trained last year. Give him a clean run at it. And yeah, we all know about his pretty much breaking himself every third game, but has played 20 games more years than not. So that's enough on Heaney. So I'll stop torturing you guys with that. JB, all yours.
Oh boy. I'm glad someone topped Stewart as a draft pick. I'm just going to say that firstly. That's a weight off my shoulders. Zack Butters is my pick here at number 4. Super obvious to me. It might not be super obvious to everyone. But this is redemption for him this year. He was going to be one of the best picks of last season. I started him last season as well before the injury, in which he got injured on about 115 at halftime and scaled back to about 95. So when he came back, he just didn't come back with enough fitness to play in that midfield role that he was so good at. So that's why he's forward only eligible. He's already training with the midfield group. He's going to be a premium option this year for the entire season. So super excited about that, and I can't wait to reflect upon the Isaac Heaney pick later. I think I get back-to-back picks. So next, this next one's actually kind of tough. There's a couple of good guys here. I think I'm going to take Mitch Duncan, someone who I don't think he's typically injury prone, despite suffering a lot of concussions somehow. Maybe he's concussion prone, but someone who also, when he's fully fit and when he's playing, is a 105 plus average player. So the fact that he's priced at 99 and he only played 10 games last season, I think he, as a premium option if he's fit going into the season, is another super obvious one.
Yep, so I might be taking the double roast at the end of this part.
Oh no,
no.
Don't do it.
My next
Don't
pick
do it.
is Charlie Curnow. No, he'll qualify for the
Mid-price one. Yeah, I'd save that one, mate.
I will still.
We'll give you that in the mid prices. Don't stress.
Okay, I'll have to take. I'll take Taranto.
Yeah.
So with Taranto, I don't think you can start him with Green out, unfortunately, but he will come good eventually, I think. So with Taranto, you're getting, apart from a shoulder injury, pretty durable. Look, he is a midfielder, but they might use him a bit up forward a bit more. I think towards the end of last year, he had his last game, he had 0 CBAs. So a little bit of a concern, but I think he actually will score okay forward, but it might be in the 80s. But if he gets some sort of mid-time, it could go into the 90s. But with Taranto, there is an issue that, when he does get that midfield time, he will butcher it. He'll just throw it on the boot and won't look, and kick all sorts of helicopters forward. So I'll take Taranto next, and yes.
Yep.
I'll take Taranto.
I'm up.
Yep.
So there's two here I'm debating. Whether they take the homer pick or... I think the only one other to me sitting there is Adam Treloar. I just don't like his durability and just the whole dog setup. So, yeah, let's go the homer pick. I'll stick with Dusty. So pissed.
You got faked out, yeah.
You got faked out. I rolled you. Look, the only thing with Dusty is obviously that big injury he took. He was in hospital for a few weeks. He's lost a lot of weight. That's the only thing concerning me a bit, because obviously strength is a big part of his game. Playing midfield, he obviously should play a lot more forward, but Dim has been saying, he's going to start in the midfield, play more midfield this year. I don't know how much I buy into that. I just think I'm going to pick him because he's the only one I trust. Well, he's the one I trust the most here of who's left. So he's still a 95 plus scorer. It's just maybe the health is a little bit of a question. Pistol.
Yeah, that one was a bit too easy. I think for the last one, I'm tossing up between two as well, and it's not Adam Treloar. I think I'm going with the last one, probably a little bit under the radar selection, and that's Jake Stringer, 506k. We don't talk about him because it's Jake Stringer and he's been a terrible Supercoach player for his entire career. But at the end of the day, the forward line is really weak. So you only really need to average, I guess, low 90s to be in consideration. And after round 11 last season, he missed rounds 9 and 10. He came back round 11. He averaged 103 for the rest of the season. He had 2 scores below 27, which is obviously terrible. And you're hoping he can iron out those really low scores as part of his game. And he could actually put together, a 95 plus average for the season. And I'm guessing he'd be a huge POD as well. So I think he's worth having a conversation about in a really weak forward premium pool.
I like that one. I did consider him. But I think Stringer will be a good pick.
I thought you were going to go with Taron Thomas.
Scorer.
Yeah, the Taron Torres was who I was tossing up.
Okay.
Oh, Tom Phillips. I'm kidding. No, just Taron Thomas I was considering.
I do like how we all passed on Treloar.
Yeah.
I think Treloar's injury issues are just way too much to consider in Supercoach anymore. And if he plays 22 games and averages 105, then so be it. I just don't think it's within the realms of possibility anymore with him.
Treloar seems like a bit of a drama queen, which kind of annoys me a bit as a pick. But with a full pre-season, I think he might be okay, but he hasn't had one for a while, I think. But as we said, a lot of issues with the Treloar pick.
Mm-hmm.
So the order was De Goey, Dunkley, Heaney, Butters, Duncan, Taranto, and Stringer. So I'm missing somebody here.
Heaney.
Dusty, my one maybe.
Dusty, sorry.
Yep.
Dusty. Taranto, Dusty, Heaney. Taranto, Dusty, Stringer, the last 3. Before I get roasted, as I said, I like Stringer. I think coming to the draft, I think he had best player in the league potential, and you can kind of see it with him. So he could explode, but again, soft tissue history, so a little bit nervous there. But any thoughts on this list? Anyone else?
I mean, I don't think we need to talk that much about Heaney. I think most of us are on the same page.
I have him on the list just further down. Further down. Yeah.
I think
I also do have him on the list. I don't think you're grabbing from absolutely nowhere, like someone who should go 20th on the list. I just think, like you said, he had the sore ankle and he was injured all last year, but also he played 20 games and he's that was sort of a ticket for durability. And I feel like it just can't be both. Like he either plays too injured and plays games and scores poorly, or he's missing games because he's injured. I don't think he can do neither of those things. So for me, I think he's going to be tough to own this year. But I love the dedication. I love the commitment.
I think he's too talented. He's going to have to play forward because they don't have the other weapons in that team. And they've got midfielders, and I think I'd put him in the same category as Taron Thomas. And I think both of them can be top 8 Supercoach players for the Lions, but there is risk there that they just don't make it.
This feels like an intervention.
I'll back him up more than that. His scoring history is actually pretty good. Like,
it is good.
Starting in 2017,
it's like plus.
Exactly. Like, it is
absolutely.
pretty good, and that might be good enough this year, really. But yeah,
I just think I'll say one more thing. I feel like he I know he's priced at 540k, but I feel like it's not the only time he's going to be priced low. 450. Wait, 450.
It says 540. I'm like, Mitch Duncan.
Did I say that? No, sorry.
Yeah.
450. And I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that he's at that price again at some point with an early exit or something. A couple of bad games forward. He's not an amazing value to me, but I might be overly critical on him.
If he went 100 plus for the first 6 weeks, I also would not be surprised. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, he's doing this. I'd be like, oh yeah, fair enough.
I mean, he's done it before. So.
Yep.
Do we make you feel a bit better?
I was prepared for a bit worse, but thanks for being kind to me. Anyway, we'll move on to the mid prices in the forward line. So under 400k.
Well, I can't pick Canelio anymore.
Pistol,
no.
Floor is yours.
Oh, so that's a shame. I think it's going to get a lot harder. I don't regret anything, but I am going to struggle now. Trying to find someone. Jed Anderson falls 1k. He's 1k too much here.
I was going to bring him up, but yeah.
I think that one.
You can't get Rosie. That's unlucky as well.
Yeah, Rosie's $200. I did look at that as well. Jeez. I think it's not pretty here, but I'm going to go with, I guess, Rayner at 278k. He got last season before his injury. They said he was going to split 50-50 mid-time. I think it was with Lions at that stage. It didn't come to fruition given his injury, and then Lions had a fantastic season. But still, towards the end of the season, he wasn't, I don't think, 100% in the midfield anyway. I think there was other people creeping some of that midfield time. And at some stage, these players like Zorko, they can't play full-time midfield like forever. They're too old, and they need to start getting some new players in that midfield. And whether that be Berry, it might be, or it might be Rayner, and they finally decide to utilize him. I think it might not be this season just because he's coming off that injury. But on the other hand, if it's not Berry, it might be Rayner. And for all the reasons that we're selecting Berry, I think Rayner has at least somewhat but lesser potential than Berry as a Supercoach scoring option. And at his price, he probably needs to average like around 90 to be worth it, and kind of like this weird hybrid mid-price, a stepping stone keeper upgrade at the buy type thing. I think it's at least in the realms of possibility that he could be added to the watch list at the preseason if he gets midfield time. But yeah, I'm not seeing too much else now.
Cool. I think the next best for me, who I've kind of had my eye on, but obviously depends, like all of these picks, really, on a lot of things in the preseason. But Jade Gresham would be the next one that stands out. 299k, which seems pretty cheap for a player as talented as he is. But it just comes down to role. If he's parked forward too much, it's just going to be an absolute nothing pick at that price. So if we see any inkling of mid-time, that's going to really prop my ears up, and I'm probably going to maybe get sucked into him. But yeah, for me, I think he's the next best mid-pricer in the forward line of the barren state of them that there is. So who's next, George?
Said it before, Charlie Curnow. So with Curnow, if you actually look at his last 4 games before he got injured, that nasty knee injury, which I think he actually re-injured it, fell in or something.
Dangerous on Randy George.
There's an 80, a 90, a 120, and then a 150. So if he can look, I don't know if he's ever going to be back to normal. We've seen O'Meara, I don't know, broken patella, something like that. Never been the same player. However, Curno's only 230k. He'll have that job security. Put 4 games together with a very, very slow build up last year. So see how he goes in the preseason for 230k. I can definitely see myself picking Charlie Curnow. Not saying he'll get back to like drop a 150, but is doing a little bit of work in the midfield group as well. So maybe he can kick a few goals, push up the ground a bit, take a few marks, have a few good games. Might be a decent cash generator for us. But definitely high on the watch list in the preseason.
Super fun to watch as well is Charlie. I'm going to pick someone who played the exact same amount of games and scored the exact same amount of points and is thus priced the exact same as Charlie Curnow. The only other guy who I can see really exploding out of this bunch is Will Brody for Fremantle. I know they got him essentially for free, so it's not like they went out and recruited him and he's got a spot in the best 22 guaranteed. But if he is one of the guys who has one of those breakout pre-seasons, looks super fit and gets a sort of half-forward midfield role, I can see a realm in which he is spoken about more heavily in Supercoach circles. That's about the best I got for him. I don't think there's a lot of players that are draftable at this stage. So Charlie Curnow being like the last real good sneaky pick. So Will Brody, there's a realm of possibility in which he plays a preseason game and gets a lot of midfield time and looks great. So I'll go with that.
Definitely a tough one before mid prices, but given a lot of the uncertainty surrounding other more expensive players in the forward line, hopefully someone gets a role change or pops up, gets a bit more midfield time in the preseason, and maybe we can look at him as a very cheap option. But the order was Rayner, Gresham, Curnow, and Brody. I don't know, Anna, are you considering any of these players in your team right now, or what do you think? Would you have anyone else?
Not for me, actually. None of these are in consideration. Maybe Gresham, but I think you've said he's training with the forwards as far as you're aware. So that's not really gonna probably. I mean, maybe it's just an early preseason thing, but at this stage, it doesn't look like any of them will feature in our sides.
Yeah, I think it was the CEO or something that said he would play forward with Billings this season. So I'm not really. I was really hot on Gresham, don't get me wrong. You listened to the podcast a couple of days ago. I was super high on him, thinking he was going to play in the midfield. But as soon as it was conditional on his role, I don't think he's going to get it. So Will Brody, don't think he's going to be best 22. I mean, don't think many of these are non-selection. I think the best talking point probably was the non-mention of, I guess, Daniel Rioli at 336k. I know as a Tiger spot, did you see anything there?
He did show flashes in that role. I just don't like the price and it is probably too much to start him. But he did show he actually played that position all right because he, since that first grand final win, he hasn't really looked the same after that foot injury. So I don't know what's going on there, but maybe found a role for him. But the other thing is, I think we got a lot of those types of players. We just recruited, just drafted a few, small young defenders as well. So I just don't know if that role's even there for him still.
Yep. No, I think so. I think Curnow's. I think when Supercoach opened, everyone was like pretty keen on selecting him, and then it's kind of fallen away, at least in the last week or so. I'm not sure if that's been reflected in the Discord, but I guess that's kind of what I'm seeing online. And he totally could be, comes out in the preseason and looks good. Could be kind of like a Joe Danaher. I guess my concerns is that he's so injury prone. It's not just that one, year that he missed, but in the previous seasons, he's been like mothballed at 3/4 time, half time, like multiple times because he's just really injury prone. So I don't know how comfortable it is, but at the same time, you're paying a cheap price, so it's low risk, high upside. As long as there's actual viable rookies that you can play if he misses 1 week, for example. If you have to put on a 30 score for that week, it kind of hurts a bit more.
Yeah, Curnow's actually in my team at the moment, and it'll depend on the quality of forward rookies. If I have a better alternative, a base price rookie, I'll take that. If not, I can see myself picking Curnow, but again, we'll wait and see how he goes over the preseason. He has to have a full preseason. But yeah. So I think that concludes our draft. So that was a bit of fun. I think we've been going for a while here, about an hour, which is good. So Interesting to see. I think most things we agree on, I think, which is good. A few things here and there, very minor. A few differences there. Definitely the ruck will be a talking point going forward, I think. See how Prus and Lynch go in terms of the opportunity and health, I guess, more so for Prus on that regard. But had a blast today, boys. JB and Pistol, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us on. Hopefully we get another chance to talk to you close to the time of the start of the season and see how things kind of changed and shifted.
Definitely. Enno, again, pleasure as always.
Pleasure's mine, mate.
All good. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you guys next time.